Hello everyone, welcome back, or just welcome if you're new. My name is Holly and it is that time of the month where I talk about some upcoming book releases. There are so many books I'll be talking about today. We have the obvious trifecta, fantasy, sci-fi, and horror, all ranges of adult, YA, and middle grade, especially spooky middle grade this time around that I think sound really cool. Of course, I can't talk about every single book release, so if there is a book I don't talk about today coming out September, be sure to let us know in the comments below. Now let's go through all the books I think you should look out for in the coming month. Starting on September 6th, we have Surwa Butang's Guide to Vampire Hunting. This is the newest addition to Rick Riordan Presents imprint, and they always sound so fun. Especially this one because it's all about Ghanaian folklore. We're following our young protagonist Surwa, whose family protects the world from zombie/vampire-like creatures called ads, but her parents are pulled away into a top-secret mission, and Surwa is forced to move in with her aunt, which makes her life a little harder. This author has such a strong writing voice, and I'm so excited to see how fun she's going to make this to read. It sounds like an engaging, spooky middle grade for the fall season. Monsters Born and Made. This is a YA fantasy debut, but more specifically, it's a South Asian inspired story that sounds like it'll hit on all the popular YA tropes from dystopian society, rebel overthrows, to underdog heroine, including a gladiator/Hunger Games type action, as our protagonist must enter what is called the glory races to save her family from starvation. And there she has the odds stacked against her as the landers push to get her out of the race, all while the rebels begin to plot behind the scenes. A watery environment with like deadly sea monsters, a rigged caste system. It sounds really cool and really fast-paced. The Curse on Spectacle Key. This is a spooky middle grade standalone, and I just love the cover, so it's one of the reasons I wanted to add it to my list, but another reason is it just sounds so darn fun. We're following Frank, and his family moves into a lighthouse where he meets a girl with a strange past, and apparently only he can see her. Bad things begin to occur amongst his family, and he begins to realize the island has some dark history, and he begins to dig deeper. It kind of reminds me of the book Spirit's Key, which I read many years ago. Very similar title too, but also reminiscent of the story. So if you're looking for a quick middle grade, maybe this will be a nice read. If you're wanting to get ready for Halloween a month early, we have a scary YA horror coming very soon, and that is The Weight of Blood. This is a novel that pays homage to Stephen King's Carrie, as clearly evident by the cover. The story is told in two different timelines, 2014 and in the future. The future timeline is told through a podcast where Michael, a man obsessed with the Maddie case, interviews people involved and experts to determine what the cause of the prom tragedy really was. And the 2014 timeline focuses on different characters along the way, including Maddie's life personally. It very much has like a Daisy Jones and the Six style storytelling about it, and it's been getting amazing reviews so far, so definitely want to check this one out. Ghostlight. Oh man, I am really excited about this one, which might surprise you as I don't read middle grade too often, but I will in fact read this. This author's older book, The Boundless, is one of my favorite middle grade novels about a train like many miles long, and it has like yetis in it. Super fun. Here though, we have a haunted lighthouse, perfect for the seasonal transition into autumn. We are following Gabe, a teenager who is working on a historic lighthouse in Toronto during the summer. One day though, he accidentally summons a real ghost, and she warns him about danger that is lurking. This does take place in a supernatural fantasy world set in Toronto, which is really cool. I'm super into ghost stories, so if you are too, but on the more lighthearted side, this should be fun. Ithaca. This is an adult Greek mythology retelling, but this one is a rare one because we get to hear the story of Penelope, the wife of Odysseus, when he went missing on his way home after the fall of Troy. But the story is actually being told to us through the voice of Hera, queen of the gods, as she watches over Penelope. Troy-inspired retellings can be rare these days, especially from the viewpoint of women, and this one gets the chance to fill in the gap from that epic side of history. This cover is everything. I think it's so cool. I really hope the gold on the physical copy is embellished because that would just take it over the edge. So if you are a Greek mythology fan and want something on the lines of Circe, the Song of Achilles, then you will be eager to check out this one. I expect it to be intricate and beautiful, maybe slower paced, as retellings tend to like to do a slow build up, but we shall find out soon. The House with the Golden Door. This is the sequel in the Wolfden trilogy as we rejoin our heroine, Amara, who was introduced in book 1. She resides in Pompeii, which is the setting of this historical series. Here you're immediately plunged into a familiar world of harsh realities and heartbreaking betrayals. The author brings the ancient city of Pompeii and its people alive through meticulous research, and it's already a very mysterious city in real life, so seeing it come to life here I think sounds wonderful. The first book is actually very high on my own TBR. It sounds like a really good fall read, and I'll have the sequel on hand actually because I do own it. Intergalactic Exterminators Inc. A brand new sci-fi romp that sounds really fun because it heavily involves aliens. The amount of sci-fi I've read that actually don't have alien interactions, far too few, but this one seems to hit that on the head. We have our protagonist Russ, who finds a strange gem in one of his grandfather's books, and no one knows anything about it, but it seems like it has some intergalactic connection. The word exterminators in the title does have me a little worried for our characters. Good things can't come with that word, but a lot of reviewers are comparing this one to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a common comparison for more lighthearted sci-fi, but I think the story here sounds unique and adventurous. What We Fed to the Manticore. As an animal lover, I could not skip over this release. This is a short story collection all written through the point of view of animals in all sorts of different settings, from Arctic to desert. All of the stories are essentially about how animals are affected by humans and the devastation and fondness that can come from these interactions, so we get a full scope of interaction throughout these stories. I think this sounds fascinating, and it would be so interesting to experience the world through the eyes of animals, even though this is written by a human, for all we know, but I like this idea a lot. It very much reminds me of Hollow Kingdom, but in that book, it's the same concept, but with a more straightforward plot in a dystopian world. But yeah, sounds like it could be heartbreaking though, so keep that in mind. Cameron Johnson is back with another new fantasy against all gods. Nice play on words. Ever since his debut, Artifact Space, he's been riding the coattails of the fantasy community with great storytelling. Here, Johnson explores the nature of gods and godhood and writes about challenging and overthrowing traditional power structures. Gods in this world are real and humans live short lives at their whim, but some are able to access powers. It sounds like a sticky situation. I absolutely love the tagline here, by the way. Absolute power corrupts eternally. Truly sounds like some high stakes action and complex plot threads. I'm excited to dive in. Okay, moving along to September 13th, we have It Looks Like Us, already blessing us with an amazing cover design. This YA horror set in a very isolated setting will sure be the perfect read with the coming spooky season. It's following 5 teens who are luckily picked to go on a research trip to Alaska. They only have a scientist and a chaperone with them, but as all horror books go, there is something stalking them. This is filled to the brim with intense body horror, claustrophobia, and anxiety-inducing fear. I am personally very excited for this one. I have come very close to starting it, as I do have an early copy, so let me know if you'd like a review from me on this one. The Stars Did Wander Darkling. I really like that title, it's very unique. This is another spooky middle grade release with an almost Stranger Things vibe to it. This one taking place in Oregon during the 80s, following 4 best friends just enjoying the summer. But strange things begin to occur when one of their fathers begins a construction job on a cliffside. Sounds to me like he disturbed some ancient curse long ago buried in the dirt, because everyone begins to act very strangely. So strange, they're like completely different people. So the kids have to band together to destroy this resurfaced evil. A great premise, a great cover, and it sounds very suspenseful. Silver Under Nightfall. So Ren Shepeko's writing pace reminds me so much of Sylvia Moreno Garcia's. I feel like they both just pump out books like it's nothing. So we have a brand new Ren Shepeko novel paying homage to vampires, but in a fantasy world. Our main character is a reaper, which makes him a vampire hunter to keep the queendom safe. Comes with all sorts of problems, especially because he gets a lot of misplaced hate from the city, and his mother was wrongfully killed. So we have some revenge tropes as well. Full of court intrigue, queer romance, and terrifying monsters, this gothic epic fantasy sounds unique and one to keep on your radar. Going in the complete opposite direction of a lot of our books today, we have The Depths. It takes place on a tropical island, so if you're sad about the cold weather coming your way, you have this one to take your mind off of it. But But the paradise isn't what it seems. This is a horror novel. Addie, our main character, has a near-death experience, so she is kind of forced to go on a vacation to a beautiful private island, but the only family living there don't go outside at night, and they warn her not to go out either. This is described as creepy, bizarre, and a really great sounding summer vacation read, if you're up for it. A great beach read too. Notorious Sorcerer. I am really excited for this one. The main character here is a queer alchemist who has a very dangerous job. He collects ingredients from different planes of existence, and by doing this, he gets paid well by the wealthy alchemist. One day, he sells a very rare item, and it might just destroy the whole city. This one is coming from Orbit, or maybe Red Hook. They're basically the same publisher, and I'm just really hyped about it. I absolutely love the cover because the cover doesn't give me the same vibe as the synopsis does, so I just have no idea on what the direction the story is going to go, so be sure to add this one to your TBR. Nona the Ninth. Gideon fans no longer have to squirm in their seats because the third book in the Locked Tomb series will be in your hands very soon. Tamsin Muir debuted with this hit series in 2019, I believe, that follows a group of spacefaring necromancers who seek awesome power by conducting dangers and mind-bending rituals. It's definitely equipped with a fascinating plot synopsis and a rad cover which has a dog on it. A+ already in my book. Hopefully for those of you who are anticipating this, it will meet your high expectations with ease. Signal to Noise. I feel like I'm always talking about a new Sylvia Moreno Garcia book every month, and that's because I do. She has a brand new book called Signal to Noise, and it's very different than her previous novels. It takes place in the 80s following a woman who returns to Mexico City decades later to attend her father's funeral, but she is somehow able to cast magic spells using vinyl records. So hopefully it has a lot of cool like retro 80s nostalgia. I'm really excited to see that time period intertwined with Mexican culture. I doubt we'll get like some 80s hair metal, but this is more of a coming of age story about family. The cover though does give like an 80s vibe, which is really cool. Moving on to September 27th, we have Leech. So this is apparently a Gothic sci-fi about parasites. Lovely. It takes place within a castle or a chateau, to be more specific, where the Baron's new doctor discovers a dangerous parasite infestation that's quietly killing its hosts. As the doctor investigates, she begins to realize there is more infecting the residents. This reminds me a lot of Mexican Gothic and What Moves the Dead. Both I've read, both I've really enjoyed. It sounds so fascinating and complex, especially with the mention of like a medical subgenre thrown in the mix, and I just love creepy stuff like this, and the title is very fitting, that's for sure. The Genesis of Misery. This is an over-stylized sci-fi retelling of the classic Messiah narrative through the lens of a queer Joan of Arc main character set in a world filled with mechs. I know, a lot going on here. If you need to go back like 10 seconds to hear what I just said, again, by all means, do so. A lot of reviewers are comparing this to Gideon the Ninth, and not even just for like the story, but the way it's written as well, with humor and like memes. Misery, our protagonist, is suddenly believed to be an all-powerful messiah, all to get out of a crime she committed, and falls victim to her religious righteousness. It sounds captivating, full of fluid characters. Cover is eye-catching as hell, and hopefully the story is too. Last of the Talons. This is an Asian fantasy, more specifically set in a world full of Korean mythology. Following Shin, who is forced to become a weapon for a gang, she becomes an assassin basically for the emperor, and it's the only way to protect her sister. And then Shin is whisked away to a different realm, and the only way to get back and keep her sister safe is to manage to kill the king within 14 days. I'm in the middle of this one actually, and I think it's for fans of Throne of Glass for sure. There's a lot of adventure, intrigue, some romance. This is also a debut. First to a new series, which is very exciting. House of Hunger. The author who debuted with her novel The Year of the Witching is back at it again with another Gothic story. I personally really enjoyed her previous book, so this is one of my most exciting books on this list, and the cover aesthetically matches, which we love. So I think at least with what the info, the synopsis gives us, we are leaving the witchy realm and entering the world of vampires. We follow Marion, who is barely scraping by as a housemaid, living in the slums with her brother, who suffers from drug and alcohol addiction. Marion then sees an advertisement for a blood mage and decides on a whim that she'll apply for the job. And it sounds like a blood maid allows the head of the houses, so like lords maybe, to drink their blood as a way to stay young and healthy. Major Countess Bathory vibes, and maybe that's the inspiration. We have a castle setting, eerie atmosphere, a perfect Halloween read, and I'll be reading this one. And finally, last on my list, but definitely not least, it's coming from Orbit Books, One Dark Window. This story takes place in a country that is surrounded by a dangerous mist because of a dark dealing in the past that has something to do with like these tarot-like cards, which is the magic system, so that is heavily involved in the story. We follow Elizabeth, who is infected with dark magic that is illegal and if discovered could sentence her to death. The spirit infecting her is called Nightmare, which sounds like maybe a demon, and she has to collect these cards to acquire the cure. Another book that I feel like has a lot going on for it. I really hope I explained that correctly. There's definitely a mystery here to be solved by the reader. Reviewers are calling this very eerie, much darker than they imagined, and it kind of reminds me of For the Wolf a little bit. And that is going to mark the end of my list for September book releases. Let me know what you'll be picking up, if I helped you find any cool sounding books you never heard before. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Now is a great time to do so, and until we meet again, happy reading.